Hi everybody, it's Miss Capri again with another video. Now, did Hillary actually say, I will only talk to white people?
Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people.
Yes, she did. There's no denying it. She said it. Now that was undeniably racist. But you have to consider who she was talking to. She was not the only racist in that room. She was talking to a Black Lives Matter activist. Now that is a racist movement. But then democratic politics usually are. It is, after all, Black Lives Matter that is trying to get segregation back.
I need all white people to move to the back. This is a black and brown resistance march. If you are for this march and you are here in support, you will appropriately take your place in the back of this march. So if y'all see any white folks, direct them to the back of the crowd. How about you leave then? How about you leave? That includes media. You can get the fuck out of the black media. That includes media. That includes media. I need all of y'all to get back. I need all of y'all to get back. You mean you can get the all of y'all to get back? White media, get to the back. Black media, come to the front. White media, you see you. You the fuck out. We see the back. To the back. We see no mask up. We not for this anarchist bullshit today. You're not afraid to put people out. You're not afraid to put people out. White people to the back. Black people to the front. That includes white people. Don't get them to understand. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
This hate group's disgusting chant, pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon, is a reference to celebrating the death of cops. The death of white cops, specifically. Now, this hate group is supported by Hillary Clinton.
It's a pleasure and honor to be in this dialogue with you. But I think that a huge part of what you haven't said is you've offered a recognition that mass incarceration has not worked. And that is an unfortunate consequence of government practices that just didn't work. But the truth is that there's an extremely long history of unfortunate government practices that don't work, that particularly affect black people and black families. And until we as a country, and then the person who's in the seat that you seek, actually addresses the anti-blackness current that is America's first drug. We're in a meeting about drugs, right? America's first drug is free black labor and turning black bodies into profit. And the mass incarceration system mirrors an awful lot like the prison plantation system. It's the same. It's a similar thread, right? And until someone takes that message and speaks that truth to white people in this country, so that we can actually take on anti-blackness as a founding problem in this country. I don't believe that there's going to be a solution because what the conversations that are happening now and why there's so much cohesion across the divide, the red side and the blue side, is because of money. Right? We're spending a lot of money on prisons. We're spending more money on prisons than we are on schools, right? But if we look at it from a lens of let's solve this financial problem, and we don't look at the greater bottom line that African Americans who are Americans are suffering at greater rates than most other people, every other people, for the length of this country, then it's not going to go away. It's just going to morph into something new and evolved. And I genuinely want to know, you and your family have been, in no uncertain way, partially responsible for it, more than most.
At this point, it cuts out for a few seconds. We now return to the program.
Now, there may have been unintended consequences, but now that you understand the consequences, what in your heart has changed that's going to change the direction of this country? Like what in you, like not your platform, not what you're supposed to say. Like, how do you actually feel that's different than you did before? Like, what were the mistakes? And how can those mistakes that you made be lessons for all of America? for a moment of reflection on how we treat Black people in this country.
I just want to, and I apologize. We have.
I would really love to allow her to answer this
no,
question.
I'm not
and
stopping.
we've worked really hard. We've driven so many hours.
We're not stopping. I'm just letting you guys know before, because we've got a couple more minutes. We still have more people in the overflow that are waiting. So I'm not interrupting what you're about to say. I just wanted to sort of give you guys a heads up on timing. So we've got limited time.
Well, obviously, it's a very thoughtful question. It deserves a thoughtful answer. And I can only tell you that I feel very committed to and responsible for doing whatever I can. I've spent most of my adult life focused on kids through the Children's Defense Fund and other efforts to try to give kids, particularly poor kids, particularly Black kids and Hispanic kids, the same chance to live up to their own God-given potential as any other kid. That's where I've been focused. And I think that there has to be a reckoning. I agree with that. But I also think there has to be some positive vision and plan that you can move people toward. I mean, once you say, this country has still not recovered from its original sin, which is true. Once you say that, then the next question by people who are on the sidelines, which is the vast majority of Americans, the next question is, well, so what do you want me to do about it? What am I supposed to do about it? That's what I'm trying to put together in a way that I can explain it and I can sell it. Because in politics, if you can't explain it and you can't sell it, it stays on the shelf. And this is now a moment in time, just like the civil rights movement or the women's movement or the gay rights movement or a lot of other movements reached a point in time. The people behind that consciousness raising and advocacy, they had a plan ready to go. So that when you turn to, the women's movement, we want to pass this and we want to pass that and we want to do this, problems are not all taken care of, we know that. Obviously, I know more about the civil rights movement in the old days because I had a lot of involvement in working with people. So they had a plan, this piece of legislation, this court case we're going to make, et cetera, et cetera. Same with the gay rights movement. We're sick of homophobia, we're sick of being discriminated against, we want marriage equality, and we're starting in the States and we're going to keep going until we get it at the highest court of the land. So all I'm saying is your analysis is totally fair. It's historically fair, it's psychologically fair, it's economically fair. But you're going to have to come together as a movement and say, here's what we want done about it. Because you can get lip service from as many white people as you can pack into Yankee Stadium and a million more like it, who are going to say, oh, we get it, we're going to be nicer, okay? That's not enough, at least in my book. That's not how I see politics. So the consciousness raising, the advocacy, the passion, the youth of your movement is so critical. But now all I'm suggesting is, even for us sinners, find some common ground on agendas that can make a difference right here and now in people's lives. And that's what I would love to, have your thoughts about, because that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do. So yeah, deal with mass incarceration. It's not just an economic issue, although I grant you, some people see it like that. But it's more than that. I think there is a sense like, low-level offenders, disparity in treatment, we got to do something about that. I think that a lot of the issues about housing and about job opportunities, ban the box, a lot of these things, let's get an agenda that addresses as much of the problem as we can. Because then you can be for something, in addition to getting people to have to admit that they're part of a long history in our country of, either proposing, supporting, condoning discrimination, segregation, etc. Now, what do we do next? And that's what I'm trying to figure out in my campaign. So that's what I'm doing.
Now, Hillary and this activist were getting along swimmingly well in the first part of this interview. They were talking about how the whites were oppressing the black people and how there was a long history of black oppression by the white people, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all before. But white guilt and white tears only goes so far if you're a liberal. It's fine to issue blanket statements. Oh, yes, the whites have oppressed the blacks for all of human history. But then, all of a sudden, when she has to take some responsibility for it herself, it isn't so much fun. And that was when she threw the hissy fit.
Madam Secretary,
Respectfully,
we do
really
have
have
to
to
go.
go, right? Sorry.
Thank you.
The piece that's most important, and I stand here in your space, and I say this as respectfully as I can, but if you don't tell black people what we need to do, then we won't tell you all what you need to do.
Well, I'm not telling you, I'm
right?
just telling you to tell me.
What I mean to say
Yeah.
is that this is and has always been a wet problem of violence. It's not, there's not much that we can do to stop the violence against us.
Well, if
And
that
it's
is
a conversation that I push
okay,
back.
I understand. I
And
understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah, well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people about how we are going to deal with
That's
the
not what I
very
mean.
real
That's
problems.
not what I mean. That's not what I mean.
Well-
But like what I'm saying is you what you just said
Mm-hmm.
was a form of victim blaming, right? You were saying that what the Black Lives Matter movement needs
Yeah.
to do to change white hearts is
No,
to
I'm not
come
talking
up
about,
with a policy
look, I don't
change.
believe you change hearts. I believe you change laws, you change allocation of resources, you change the way systems operate. You're not going to change every heart. You're not. But at the end of the day, we can do a whole lot to change some hearts and change some systems and create more opportunities for people who deserve to have them to live up to their own God-given potential, to live safely without fear of violence in their own communities, to have a decent school, to have a decent house, to have a decent future. So we can do it one of many ways. You know, you can keep the movement going, which you have started, and through it, you may actually change some hearts. But if that's all that happens, we'll be back here in 10 years having the same conversation. Because we will not have all of the changes that you deserve to see happen in your lifetime because of your willingness to get out there and talk about this.
Thank you.
Thanks, we gotta go this way.
We should find a way to do this. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm
I
ready
really
to
do.
do my part in any way that I can.
And I'm sure, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, my intro to this particular video was actually just a small clip of it, and it was where Hillary had lost her temper. And then it was accompanied with some commentary about how Hillary was supposedly acting like this plantation owner who was addressing some slave and being really snarky and really condescending toward this innocent man as if he was a slave. And it wasn't really a very good recording of it. There was parts of it that were cutting out, and it sounded like it had just dropped off in the middle of something. So I went looking for different versions, or not versions, but different copies of it. And I found the full interview, and that's how I found out what actually happened. No, Hillary was not the one who was the slave owner here. This time, the guy was. He was a Black Lives Matter activist, and he went in there on a mission to make this white woman fall to her knees and crumble before him. And he kind of succeeded because she was like his little demure slave, agreeing with everything he said and trying to say all the right things and being so careful not to try not to offend him. She was being so careful until he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and finally she just couldn't take it anymore and she snapped, and out of her mouth came something monumentally stupid. Mainly the I'll talk to only white people about. I don't know where the heck that remark came from. I wouldn't have said that. If it had been me, I wouldn't have even brought race into it. I just would have said, look, take your attitude and take a hike. The bigger racist and aggressor in this situation was the Black Lives Matter activist. He was the master. Hillary was his slave. He wasn't screeching like a lot of social justice warrior activists do, and he didn't have a physical whip. but he had a verbal whip, and he lashed Hillary until she could take it no more. And she let her temper fly. Now, in previous videos, I think I've made a pretty good case for why I believe that Hillary is racist and why the Democratic platform is full of racist stuff. But unfortunately, I cannot add this to that because of the circumstances. If Hillary had said this to a black Republican who was opposing Black Lives Matter and trying to tell her why it was such a rotten idea, and she just lost her cool and said, I'll only talk to white people about this because they'll listen to me and you're just being impertinent or whatever. That would make a lot more sense, and it would certainly show her to be racist. But that just wasn't the case here. Sorry, folks, but